Welcome to Stream After Hours, featuring Carolyn Shaw and Claudia Taylor.
I'm Claudia Taylor, sitting in the Stream Austin office. Been with Stream for about 2 years now on our office tenant representation team. Carolyn, tell us what you do and where you are.
So I'm Carolyn Shaw. I'm the executive managing director and partner for the San Antonio office. I've been with Stream for coming up on 14 years, straight out of the University of Texas. And now I started my career kind of in the office leasing side, on the agency side of the business, and then have kind of graduated to doing a lot of all the different aspects that we do here at Stream, which is our principal transactions, our developments, leasing on just the office side, but the principal side I've worked on both industrial and office projects in healthcare. But now I oversee all aspects of the San Antonio office, which includes the property management, the construction management, obviously the leasing side, and the principal transaction side. So kind of a full plate, but a lot of fun different things, and wear a lot of different hats.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like your experience and exposure has really run the gamut and seen all sides. So you started right out of Texas, you said. How did you find Stream and how did that come about?
So I was a finance major at UT, and I was in the business honors program, and everybody in that program, I felt like, this was when I started college, it was the heyday of investment banking and everybody wanted to go into investment banking, and I knew it wasn't right for me. And so I kind of found myself into real estate. There was a program called REFIC at UT, which is now, I just think it's the UT Real Estate Fund. And I was lucky enough to be on the first undergrad group that worked on the REFIC Fund, which is a real estate investment fund that the MBAs were managing at the time. I think it was just about $400,000 worth of funds that they were managing and investing in REITs. And I got to be the undergrads that worked to help as their analysts in that program. And that was I started that my junior year of college, and that was my first exposure into real estate. I always joke that I knew nothing about real estate. I was the typical person that thought it was just about buying homes. I used to think if your name was on a building, that meant you owned it. Like, I didn't know. I came from a medical family. So that was my first exposure into it, and I realized I really liked this thing. This was really pretty cool, very tangible assets. And from there, I had a family friend who was married to a Stream partner in Dallas at the time. And that was my introduction into Stream, was through a gentleman named Ben Sumner. And from there, I just started interviewing with different people my senior year when I realized, A, I wanted to come back to San Antonio, and B, I wanted to get into real estate. And I was lucky enough in 2009, which you probably don't remember very well, Claudia, but it was the Great Recession, so it wasn't like the time people were jumping up and down to go get into real estate. I was lucky enough to find a job in real estate with Alan Young here in San Antonio, and that's just started my career straight into office leasing. And at the time, San Antonio only did the office side of the business. We weren't in industrial, we weren't in healthcare. And we also didn't have like a real analyst program at the time. So I went straight into commission brokerage day one in September of 2009. So it's an interesting time. Deep dive. How about you? Like, how did you find Stream?
So a little bit more of a roundabout way. I grew up in Austin, and my dad is in the commercial real estate world, so kind of always had that exposure and, stories at the dinner table of things, but it was never really my interest in school, at least in the beginning. So I went to Texas, stayed in Austin, and when I graduated, got into the advertising world, and was in that for about a year, and kind of looked around and had a little, what I call my quarter life crisis of, is this what I'm going to be, what I'm passionate about and what I want to be doing for the next 50 years. And I had to reevaluate because it really wasn't. So I started just by getting coffees and lunches with, family, friends, and found this, I guess, family of people that really loved what they did. And I resonated with a lot of those people. So I was like, okay, let me, learn more about this. So in a, long-winded way, found my way into the commercial real estate world and found my way into Stream, and had a great opportunity to join our office tenant representation team that was being built out by our senior partners at the time. So came in as an analyst and right in the middle of COVID. So a really interesting time to join as well. But it's been a fun learning experience, and was really thankful to find the seat that I did when I did.
You I know you and I really don't know each other that well, but I do remember when you were getting hired and you had first started, because I had heard from Taylor Green and I heard from Alex and Connor about how great they had this really awesome young girl coming in on their team, and they were so pumped. So I'm so excited that you found your way in there.
I weaseled my way in somehow. So you've, had your whole career at Stream and kind of grown greatly within all your roles. How have you learned to take that next step and stay within this company and do that?
I mean, I feel like probably like with everybody, there's been a lot of crazy turns and a lot of changes. I mean, when I interviewed with Mike McVeen, right? So, I mean, at that point, we were under 200 people. And I always think it was so funny, like, why I chose this path. I mean, I was getting flown for interviews places across the country, first class, and then I had to pay for my Southwest ticket up to Dallas to go interview. And we've changed a lot, obviously. But I interviewed with Mike and Alan and all of them, and it was now we're at 1,500 people, and how we invest in things and how our processes, they've all grown and changed. And at times I remember thinking some of the things and the decisions that were being made at top were going to be like the worst things for us, and then they ended up being some of the best things for us. Staying with Stream has been one of the best things I've ever done. I mean, you'll find this in your career. I'm sure you probably already get approached all the time by other groups. It's a interesting, like, to hear other groups talk and try to sell you on why you come over there. But the best thing about Stream is the opportunity that we have and we offer people, and the growth, and no one tries to stop you from growing. I have taken a handful of different roles, and none of them will I say have I jumped off real easily. Like, I'm a very nervous person. So, of course, when you give up your leasing portfolio to focus on principal deals, that's really scary. It's like something you worked really hard for, and then you're going to kind of pivot a little bit in your career to try to learn something different. And we're in an industry where it's not like you have a set salary, so you have to have a lot of belief and trust in yourself that you can make an income. So I will say that I've been very lucky to have mentors and supports that have helped me, like, kind of jump off the ledge a little bit. Mike McVeen is probably one of the best at convincing me that I can do something different, and having faith and trust in me, and that goes a long way. Same with Alan Young, who's my partner in the San Antonio office. So that's a big part of it, and I feel like as I've gotten older, I've been a lot better about doing that, because I've proof's in the pudding, right? I've done changes before, and I got comfortable, and we keep moving on and growing. And I think it will continue to change. I do think that it is, once something gets kind of repetitive and you've mastered a skill, you've got to keep pushing yourself to learn and keep growing, so you become better and you allow people underneath you to grow and take on more responsibility. So, again, I think the best part about Stream is we continuously evolve, and we are continuously allowing people to grow and find new avenues for growth, and that creates more opportunity. We don't try to pigeonhole anyone. And I think that's a big part of why I've been able to stay at Stream for 14 years, and hopefully the rest of my career.
That's great.
Have you seen that though? Like where you are, you're towards the beginning of your career, you feel like there's that opportunity?
There is, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the encouragement and the mentorship. I found that to be one of the best things about Stream is everyone on my team and in the office and the greater Stream whole has always encouraged me, and there's always a feeling of, if you're not happy, let's make you happy. What can we do? Where can we find a good spot for you, and what opportunities are you looking for? So I think that's been one of the best things of knowing you have people that really care about your trajectory, and not just are you doing the job at hand? Because it's always that next step. The grass can be greener a lot of times. So to know that you have people wanting you to go forward and stay with Stream and have that support is huge. I'd say one thing that, as I'm in the earlier part of my career and you've navigated this, when have you found that those opportunities, if you're taking a pivot in your career, how do you know that those are maybe the right opportunities or a step that you want to take?
Wow, that's a good one. I don't know. For me, a lot of times I feel like it's like when I'm kind of stagnant, right? Like I'm doing the same thing. I'm not as excited every morning to get up and do this task. But and that's a big part of it. Sometimes it takes someone knocking on the door too. Mike, for me, has been a bit, and Alan have been a big one about, okay, hey, I really think you're going to do good at this. Like, you really should try, and you need to step out of your comfort zone. So sometimes it's finding someone that you really trust that's going to push you. And then sometimes also just sitting back and evaluating your life and where you are. I am, because of my background, I think some of that finance background, I've always been so intrigued with the fund team, and I love that. But I also understand where I am in my stage of life and my career. Like, I can't be on a plane all the time. So that's a big part, is also just being real and understanding where you are in life. And I constantly have a list going in my head and notes about, okay, what am I going to do in the next phase of my life? Like, I love where I am right now. I love my job. But what's the next step I can take with this company, and where will I take it? And when will I take it? And reality is, for me, with young kids, the reality, it's like when they leave the house, I'll take the next step. But that's, so I think a lot of times it's just constantly be looking at yourself and evaluating, and it's a mix of listening to people you really trust, and also knowing yourself and when you're anxious and ready for the next step.
Yeah,
and push yourself.
I think it's a balance of, you touch on this, but believing in yourself and thinking, I can take this next step, but also having those people around you to point those opportunities out, because at least sometimes I get so stuck in what I'm doing and where I am that it's kind of hard to see the forest and the trees. Alex, who's one of my mentors, always says that, of like, know that I want what's best for you. And if he points to an opportunity, it's always for my benefit, but you really have to trust those people who are, telling you those things, and find those right mentors to help you see that.
I think we're so, I think about this all the time. I feel so lucky, blessed, whatever words you want to use, with the people that are surrounding, like my teammates, my mentors here within Stream, because, everybody seems to really be looking out for each other and what's best for each other. I mean, we all have our own personal goals. but you know, I think every day I have the best team, and it's so much fun. So,
how have you shifted in your career of, you know, being mentored and now maybe mentoring some of the people in your office or others in the industry?
So I still have tons of mentors, and I lean on them all the time, and I'm thankful for that. And I don't think you can ever be at a point in your career where you don't have mentors. And I think one of the other things people make the mistake of is, like, you know, most people think mentors have to be older than you. I don't think that's true. I lean on people and ask questions, people that are younger, earlier on in their career as well. But it is, you know, it is weird. I still like to think I'm the 22-year-old right out of college, and I'm not anymore. And I have different experiences that I can lean on to help encourage others. It's really rewarding to be a mentor and to help people. Quite frankly, probably more rewarding than I ever thought it would be. And know that you're making a difference, and it's really exciting. I don't, like I said, sometimes I still feel like it's kind of surreal to think that, like, people are calling me for advice. Like, I mean, it's still surreal to think I'm a mother of 3. So I don't know. I still, like I said, I still think I'm 22 years old. But you know, having mentors and having people that you can lean on and trust on is just vital. But I think about, like, some of my mentors who have done so much for me. It's like you also have to pay it forward, right? We're all trying to grow, and you know, that's how you change the world. It's by helping others.
Looking back on your career, someone in my position, what advice would you give either to your younger self or people, you know, starting off in the commercial real estate world or just in their careers?
So I always think, just like, never make assumptions. That's like the thing that I have to remind myself all the time. It's so easy to assume and keep on moving forward, but that's the biggest mistakes, and probably I would have made a lot more money in my career if I just wouldn't have made assumptions that you know, that tenant's going to renew, or, you know, go after things, ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, I wish I would have asked more questions, and I've gotten better about that, and I've learned a lot from Alan. And Alan asks nonstop questions, things that you would think sometimes you're like, why is he asking that? I know he knows the answer, but sometimes the answer is different. You know, the economy changes, the world changes, so the answer could change. He doesn't just make those assumptions that he knows the answers, and I think that's really important, and I wish I did that more. And the other thing I always think about is I wish I would have trusted my gut a little bit more. I still reflect a lot on a deal that we had done, and I was the youngest. I was an analyst, I wasn't an analyst at the time. But I was acting more as the analyst on the deal, on the underwriting side. I was reading the ground leases. There was a lot of different title stuff going on, and I kind of took the approach that I'm just trying to learn, like I'm absorbing, which is the case. But I saw some, like, kind of concerning things to me about it, and I didn't speak up enough, and the deal ended up being fine, but it probably, if we would have gone back in time, we might not have done it. And I wish I would have, like, talked more about it and been more vocal and trusted in my gut, trusted in my instincts. I think I was so worried about, trying to be in my place, so to speak, and know my role. But I think you've got to find that balance and be smart. Like I said, so I think those are things that I wish I would have done differently. But I also would tell, like, anybody that I'm interviewing or coming out of college talking to, like, the number one thing is, like, call people on the phone. Like, just don't rely on emails and texts. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I guess I was at the very kind of end of that generation of calling people all the time. But you find out so much more from having a conversation. And we miss that right now. and there's a place for emails and there's a place for text, but like I would tell this generation, call people, set up meetings, and get into an office.
Couldn't agree more.
So, because that's how you're going to really learn, and that's how you're going to gain just a lot of different knowledge, both emotional intelligence and actual, understanding of intellectual intelligence there that's being passed down.
Right. And so much of what we do is building relationships, and that just can't be done over email or virtually all the time. We need that face-to-face connection, or you said, just picking up the phone and talking through something. I definitely noticed that in the first part of my career. It's a lot more comfortable to send an email when you're not exactly sure what you're saying or asking or don't know. I don't want to sound dumb. I struggled with that all the time. Like, I don't want to sound stupid, so I don't want to be caught on the phone and not have the right answer. And I think a lot of that too is sometimes just admitting that you don't know the answer. You don't know what you don't know. So having that at least awareness, and people aren't going to judge you for that. I think when you pretend to have those answers, someone can sniff that out. But just calling someone and talking through things, it's always easier, and you feel more comfortable and build a relationship that way with people of, okay, let's grab coffee and talk through this. Especially with colleagues and other people at shops. That's how, it's really easy to build a rapport when you have that kind of personal connection with someone.
One of the things you kind of made me think of, and I also think this, Alan used to tell us this all the time, and we still did, but like a lot of times we always try to put bad news, like you try to email the bad news because you're afraid of getting in that hard conversation, or you just, he calls it like, you're an ostrich, you put your head in the ground and you just try to avoid the conversation. But like the reality is delivering bad news, you got to do it, and you got to do it fast and early. And that's something else that I would make sure that, as a young person, that you kind of learn that trait, because it's something that I think clients or friends, people respect, and there's a lot of honesty and trust there that you gain, and it goes longer further. But it might be an uncomfortable conversation, but it goes a long way.
Right.
It only gets worse if you avoid it, right?
You can't outrun those conversations. They'll come back eventually.
Yep.
So, Carolyn, I'd be curious to hear, what has been your biggest aha moment in your career?
Yeah, so when I got these questions, I was talking with Alan. I was like, what would you say the aha moment is? It was the only one I really kind of had trouble thinking through. And he looked at me, he's like, well, that's just easy. I mean, it's when you learn how to understand the full aspect of real estate and the principal deals, and you everything that goes involved in that. And I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. It kind of puts all the pieces of the puzzle of real estate together. But and I say that meaning, like, when you understand a true full principal transaction, if that's from a ground up development or acquiring a building, you understand the lenders, the title policy, all these different moving parts that make you a better leasing agent, because you understand what the ramifications could be of agreeing to like one deal point and an LOI. And so that was like, well, that's a good answer. But for me, at the end of the day, I couldn't really, in all truthfulness, say that was my aha moment. I really think for me, and it's a career and life thing, but it was when I became a mom. I became a mom at one time to 3 kids. So I have 7-year-old triplets. And, I went straight into that part of my life, a little bit quicker than I was anticipating. But it really it's been one of the best things for my career, because it really helped force me into thinking through what is important, what I need to focus on, delegating, time management. It just kind of put a lot of stuff in perspective, and hitting on some of the things we talked about earlier with regards to, maybe having a difficult conversation, right? I used to think those were so earth-shattering. Now, after all the different things that you deal with being a mom, it puts that in perspective. Having a difficult conversation can still be difficult, but it's not going to be the end of the world. And you also gain probably a whole nother level of confidence for me. Like I feel like I'm stronger. I'm smarter about what I do as a result of it. And then I also am working for something totally different. It's not just for myself at this point. So that to me, I would have to say is the biggest aha moment of my life and career.
I love that answer. And I love what you said about, distilling your focus and trying to evaluate where you want to spend your time and what's important, and kind of those next steps you want to take, and how you want to grow your career and where. Do you think there is a balance of work and life, and how do you go about that? And what does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis? I'm sure with 7-year-old triplets, it can't be easy.
Yeah, there's totally a balance. I think one of the best quotes that I've heard, I'm probably going to misrepresent this quote, but I was at the UT Real Estate Conference, and I guess it was 2019. I think it was right before COVID. Kathleen McCarthy of Blackstone was speaking, and she got asked the same question. I do want to put a little asterisk here. I do think it's kind of funny that women get that question, but men usually don't.
Never do. Yeah.
They should, because that would help probably solve a lot of our problems. But I would say that she goes, people think balance is 50-50. And the reality is balance isn't. There are days, she goes, I'm 100% a mom, and there are days I'm 100% work. Because, maybe I'm traveling, I'm on a work trip, and there's the 80-20, it just depends. And so I have my husband's absolutely fantastic. We are both very involved in the kids' lives, and splitting up kind of who's doing what activities, different things. But there is a balance, and priorities are constantly changing. Just like in where you are right now, I'm sure you go into your day thinking, I've got these 5 tasks as the priority, then you get a phone call and something changes. And it's just constantly reevaluating what you need to get done and what's, the task at hand. So I think, that was kind of an aha moment hearing Kathleen McCarthy say balance isn't 50-50. It's day by day. And that helped me feel more comfortable on the days where sometimes I just have to be a mom and not pay attention to what's happening on the emails. And there's days where I know my husband's got it, or I called in the reserves. I got the mother-in-law and my mom and whatever working, and I've got to get through and give an attention to a project that needs the attention. So,
yeah, I mean, our jobs and industry are so dynamic. So to be able to have those people you can call on to help with that and help support your career when you need it is huge. It sounds like.
It's funny. We talk a lot about mentors, I think, as far as like our career mentors, but I think one of the other things that, again, children in life, it's like life mentors, people that might not have any idea about real estate, but are helping me navigate my children's education or other things, or help me just, the friend that's there to do the carpool, at the 4:00 hour, because I'm not leaving the office at 4:00, those type of things. Right. It's a village. So, I want to go to you, Claudia, on the aha moment type question. You already had one of those, right? You had this career changing thing. Mm-hmm. Have you had any aha moments already in the real estate career?
I think if I think about it, one of maybe my aha moments after I joined commercial real estate and getting into Stream and into this job, I'd say is, realizing this is not just a job, but is what I want to do, for the rest of my life. So figuring out how I can do that and how I can be passionate about it. And, not necessarily in kind of like that textbook way of, find your passion and follow that. But, some things aren't going to every day is not going to be maybe super fun. Like I'm not going to maybe love putting this survey together or love doing this research project, but as a whole, when I step back and look at it, do I enjoy what I'm doing? I think so much of that isn't always the work itself, but everything surrounding it. So the people I work with, the clients we have, if I feel like I'm, making a difference in our community, I think that's, one thing. Speaking of, life mentors and work mentors, my dad's been a huge mentor to me in both aspects. And one of the things he has instilled in me is that, in 20 or 25 years, you want to make sure you look back and you're proud of what you did and what you did had an impact. And I think sometimes that's hard to see day to day, but choosing, what feels right for you. And like you said earlier, going with your gut and working with people you trust, you'll, in my mind, never regret that. So having that moment of, okay, how do I choose those things in a small way on a daily basis or weekly basis to hopefully grow that, where in 10, 15, 20 years, I look back and say, oh, I worked on that project that completely changed this neighborhood, or I helped this company grow in a way that, helped them hire more, helped them reach these goals. So it's, a little bit slower in this first stage of my career of, getting those aha moments. But I think that was one of really trying to figure out how what I'm doing in small ways is building upon those larger goals.
Yeah. I think that's all. I mean, you made a good point about like building your community. That's something that I've become really involved with, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to be focusing like just on San Antonio right now, because like I'm born and raised here. My husband's born and raised here. It's like, but San Antonio needs to, I want it to grow up a little bit. I want there to be job opportunities so that my kids want to come back here. I want it to be this cool city. You've seen Austin in your lifetime go from probably being kind of more of a college town to being just this booming metropolitan. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. So I don't know if I want the all the traffic that Austin has as much, but I would love to see San Antonio have the job opportunities like that, and that's really meaningful to me. And being in the industry that we're in, we get to be a part of that.
Right. How, in other maybe organizations or other ways have you gotten involved with your community in order to maybe have an impact or influence on that with, city decision makers or companies recruiting and moving to San Antonio?
Oh man, you went off script on that one. I have a long list of I wish I had a big resume for that. No, I've been starting to get a lot more involved in our greater SATX, which is our economic development. It used to be the San Antonio EDF. It's been rebranded. Back about 3 years ago, they really did a kind of a 180, and similar to kind of what Austin did with Gary Farmer and that whole deal there. But I am very much trying to get more involved with that, be active in that. Like I said, I wish I had a long resume that I was on the boards of all these different things, and my husband and I are involved in a handful of just kind of local organizations, but ultimately I have a limited time in the day, and so I put my focus on this office, my family. I work with Greater SATX, and then I try to get involved with the University of Texas on the real estate fund there. So those are kind of where I probably spend my time the most. But it is, like I said, it's something that I am grateful for.
Right. It'll be interesting to see Austin and San Antonio, as both cities continue to grow, merge. And, I think they're finally taking a little more formal alliances of, as a region, how are we, growing this and making it better for both Austin and San Antonio, and putting, joining forces and kind of using both resources to make that happen. I know
for those who don't know, Austin, San Antonio is about 70 miles away. We take it for granted because we're right here, but if anyone, California might not realize how close we are as a region. But yeah, it's amazing. You used to get on 35, and it was, you got north of San Antonio, and it was farmland until you hit, probably just south of MLK or something. I mean,
Right.
there was nothing, and now there's barely a break. So it's pretty incredible.
We have this debate in my family and with friends sometimes of I love to see the growth in Austin, and I'm sure you do too, of San Antonio. Do you ever feel like it's become a detriment, in a personal way? Like, we always complain about the traffic and people moving here, but
Yeah.
I'm like, well, my livelihood kind of depends on this, and if you, the saying, if you don't grow, you're dying, that kind of thing. So I think sometimes there's a push and pull of what people want and what, you're born and raised in San Antonio. You obviously have a great loyalty and pride in your city.
Yeah, I would say I totally get that. I hear my mother say it all the time. There's always that fear of change. I would say that I think you have to keep growing, but you have to be smart about growth. We got to make sure there's infrastructure. We've got to do it the right way, and create communities that are sustainable, and that's so I want to make sure there's still always land for parks and outdoor activities, things like that. But I do think you have to be, it's a balance. But I am with you. I think we have to grow, or you're just going to get left behind.
Right. I think with maybe the communities too, a lot of that, sometimes developers get kind of a bad rap from people. Would you say maybe that's one of the largest misconceptions of what you do in this industry, communicating that to stakeholders and, just people that are impacted by, maybe principal or development deals that Stream San Antonio is working on?
I think that I always think the biggest misconception that we ever get those that is people think we're they hear the word real estate and they go straight towards you're a realtor, you're in residential, and a lot of times people don't even know that we do principal transactions as much. But yeah, as a developer, I think a lot of developers can get a bad reputation for that. But I think what people don't understand, there's a lot of stewardship that goes into being a responsible developer, which I would say Stream is, and it's just trying to manage things the right way, and be responsible, and have the right team. I think that's when you are developing something, you need to make sure you have the full right team. When I say the team, the architect, the civil engineer, everybody that's all in the same boat, trying to make sure that the project is done the correct way.
Well, Carolyn, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks for sharing and indulging in all my questions. It's been fun.
No, thank you. Thanks for the conversation.